Hey, I see you now.
This morning is Shaun Palmer, City Council member of the Rochester City Council. Very honored and privileged to have you here today. Shaun Palmer, the residents are really curious about what's happening with the Silver Lake Dam, the historic land designation, landmark designation, and the request for action and so forth. Can you help us set out this timeline and what are the actual facts of the situation as they stand with the Silver Lake project, Silver Lake Park, etc., and Silver Lake?
Well, Wes, as we talked about, this is about the facts, and I will let you know the best that I remember of the facts. But right around 2019, the city council was presented with a proposal to add a north trail, to add a pedestrian walkway, and to modify the dam. It was voted for, and I believe I was the only one that voted against it. Mr. Keene is the only one that's sitting on the city council right now that voted for it. So what this means is that you would still have a dam. We would still have the same elevation of the water approximately, but we would lose 750 feet of shoreline on both sides. Now, some people were asking questions, and when they started asking questions of the staff of Public Works, because Public Works is now in control of this project, they weren't getting straight answers or asking you not to believe what you actually saw. So again, we lose 750 feet of shoreline on both sides. The rowing club would not be able to use the lake anymore, and they're a nice part for us. So the other part of this is that the reason for modifying the dam was access under Broadway. So the corner of Silver Lake Foods there at 14th Street Northeast and Broadway was considered by some to be unsafe. The data from the last 10 years does not show that it's unsafe. No one's been killed there. There's been, I think, one bike accident that happened there. I run it quite a bit. So the idea was that you'd modify the dam back, then you could put a trail underneath. But this spring, we're going to start North Broadway. And I asked Mr. Dabowski, our engineer, whether or not we needed to go underneath the bridge. He said, nope, this will now become a much safer crossing. It was safe, but it'll become much, much safer. So then the idea is to add a pedestrian bridge alongside of the Broadway Bridge. And that bridge would be one of the things they'd like to build at the same time as they dredge the lake. We don't have the money for that either. But in saying that, the North Trail, that's now a cost estimate is about $2.7 million. They will tell you, and I mean the staff will tell you that the reason it's so expensive is that we don't own all the property. There are people in the community who want to tell you that the city owns all the property and that we should be using our property. Well, there's 3 lots that we do not, and it would be very costly to build that. I'll go back to the pedestrian bridge. The side of the walkway along the North Broadway Bridge is 1 foot wider than the new bridge at Elton Hills Drive. So that walkway may not be the best, but it is wider than the brand new bridge we just built at Elton Hills Drive. This bridge that we're built at North Broadway should be replaced in about 20 years. And the maintenance that costs to keep the dam going, I was at an RPU meeting, is about $10,000 a year. And they just spent $800,000 about 5 years ago. And so in about 15 years, they'd have to spend another $800,000 taking care of cylinders and stuff like that. So that's kind of the background on it. The reason that the dam was built was for recreational reasons. So we have a park in Rochester and people could participate in that. A few years later, RPU built a power plant there and they hooked up to it and they discharged their warm water. And then RPU became having to take care of that dam because Park Department didn't have the funds to do it. So RPU is in charge of the maintenance of that dam. So that's another fact that people didn't know about. Let's see here. The dam has been in the CIP budget for the last couple of years. And what we asked the staff, and I'll say we because once the city council votes on something, it becomes all of ours. We all march as one. And so we put it in the CIP budget asking for funding for this project. And last May, one of the employees at Public Works applied for a Lasar Sam outdoor grant. And they applied for it, and it got looked at up at the state. And so there's a couple things on that bothered me once I read the grant. And one of them is that they keep referring to dams like this are dangerous. Well, this dam has never had an accident. And they'll tell you, well, yeah, that type of low head dam is dangerous, but ours has never had an accident. They also state that our dam is about 100 years old, and they neglected to tell people that it was rebuilt in 1994. About 3/4 of it was, and added for flood control. And so that was misleading what they put in there. The other misleading thing that they put in the application, which really bothers me, is that they say that we will add 17 miles of fish habitat upstream from this dam. And so I know, because I'm a runner, that about 1.25 miles up in the Zumbro, there's another low head dam. On the Bear Creek, there's 2 low head dams. In fact, there's 9 dams that would have to be modified to get to 17 miles of fish habitat. So if I'm up in the state and I don't know anything about Rochester and I'm looking at this application, I see, wow, we got an old 100-year-old dam that's dangerous, and they're going to add 17 miles of fish habitat. I could see why they might want to, grant us $2.36 million to assist in that. The other thing that's troubling is that we did have a vote for a sales tax extension, and we have to thank everybody in Rochester for voting for that. But the sales tax extension clearly stated that no sales tax dollars could be used for removal of the dam. And so I don't know where we'll be getting the matching grant to do this, but we can't use sales tax dollars for that. The curious thing about it also is that there are a group of people who want this to become nothing more than a river. And we do have 2 city council members sitting on the council right now that want it to be nothing more than a river. There's some people who get offended when you say that it's going to end up like Lake Shady. There's a possibility that it could end up like Lake Shady, and all it would take is a large storm to take the dam out or part of the dam out, and then you end up with Lake Shady. So, the people who don't like that, they're spreading this idea that, oh, no, it'll never become a Lake Shady. You can't guarantee that. On the other side of this is the city council had Silver Lake looked at from an historical perspective. In historical wise, this dam location and the size of the lake are considered to be historic. So somehow the city council would have to say, well, you know what, we don't care what the state says, and we're just going to modify it a little bit. The other thing that's troubling on it is that they have a vegetation plan for the next 3 years they would like us to use, which we'd have to fund, which we don't have the money for. And the biggest one of the complaints I get about Silver Lake is the fact that the vegetation that they put on there about 15 years ago, they had a grant to do it. Public Works got that grant. They planted all these seeds. They gave it to Park Department, and now we have weeds, and really we don't know what to do with it. So there's a lot of things on this that are troubling. At the best of my knowledge, what I just have said to you is the facts. I don't think you can dispute any of those facts. So, Wes, do you have any questions?
I think those facts can be disputed either. And I'm curious about one aspect of the grant application as to its contents. Is there a line in the grant application that says that fish are afraid of rain at one point?
I don't recall that. It's a 12-page application. I have it in front of me. It does say that they do. I asked the question of the staff, the mussels that are down below it, that they did a mussel survey when they did Elton Hills, could survive better upstream, and that the fish could be migrating up there would be safer. The other thing that's kind of troubling is that the handout that the city has provided shows 4 different dam that have ripple dams in them, and every one of them is exactly like Lake Shady. None of them have a 7 or 8 foot drop, and that's about a 10-foot drop. And if you go upstream, if you take the Zumbro, you go up the Zumbro, you'll hit a dam right around the government center. You'll hit another dam under North Broadway or on South Broadway. You hit 3 dams in the golf course, and then you hit a large dam that drops at elevation 10 feet behind the old Chuck E. Cheese. Now, if you go up to Bear Creek, there's another dam right there by Riverside School. You go up that by Mayo High School, there's a huge dam location there, and then the only one that doesn't have a dam is Silver Creek. And but all three of those do not add up to 17 miles of fish habitat unless you do extensive control. And people have to remember that our flood control project is Corps of Engineers. We can't just willy-nilly decide to go do something. We have to apply through it. We have to do a study through the Corps of Engineers to get anything modified.
So, you mentioned the mussel species that are living near the dam. Is it possible that they're living there because they're thriving under those conditions? Or is it possible that if the scientists determine that the mussels are under stress, is that because their food resource has been taken away in terms of the geese that used to live at Silver Lake with the droppings in the water? I mean, the mussels presumably have less food now than they did prior to the city deciding to cull the geese population. Well, cull is the wrong word, but they oiled the geese eggs the first year, and then the second year they swapped them out with ceramic eggs. And I think environmentalists should be concerned about that too. But is the stress of the mussels anything to be concerned about in terms of the stress of the human population for people like me who live right near the dam and I've got moisture in my basement? I mean,
I have no idea on the mussels. That's a subject that I am not aware of. You live by Cascade Creek, and if you go right around the corner, there's a large dam right there at Cascade also, to prevent the water from going up Cascade. So it's, Rochester's unique. It's in a bowl. As far as the geese go, I don't believe the geese have any effect on it. The grant we got for the vegetation was for fecal matter to prevent it from going into the lake. Yeah, when they originally started with this, they had pictures of kids on tubes going down the river and people in kayaks going down the river, and we asked the question of water flow. And as you know, in the summertime, the water flow goes quite a bit down. It really wouldn't be a flow in June, July, or August.
also, I wonder if they did a study into after removing the geese, we have now possum in this area, and we have an influx of moles and mice and other kinds of rodents in our area. But so currently, the Silver Lake Park does possess an historic landmark designation, right? As it currently stands.
It does from our HPC and it does from the city council, correct?
And the dam is an integral part of the Silver Lake Park. I'm hoping to establish that connection. Isn't it true that the dam is part of the park?
In the historic preservation thing, it said the location of the dam is.
Okay, excellent. And then on a different point, the letter that was sent on March 20th, just a couple of weeks ago, March 20th, 2024, to our state legislature it stands in support of a legacy bill, House File 4124 and Senate File 5116, Silver Lake Dam Fish Passage Modification. And it's signed by Kim Norton, Mayor, Brooke Carlson, Council President, and Allison Zelms, City Administrator. It makes reference to a public information session with over 100 people that was held on April 6th of 2022. And it's showing that there's all this great support for making dam modifications. I mean, my understanding is that most of the people who turned up to meetings wanted the Silver Lake Dam and the park really to be left alone. Am I getting this wrong? And lastly, does this House file and Senate file, is it really germane? I don't know if that's still current.
Yes, the House file is the House file is 4124, and that has part of the bill from the Lessard Sams group that does this for special funding for environmental things. I was at that meeting. There's about 175 people who were there. It was at our service center on 41st Street. My understanding, there was no scientific part of it, but I would say 75 to 80% of the people were not in favor of the modification. There are some people from Rochester who are there again who want nothing more than a river. They'll deny that, but that's what publicly they have said.
Letter of March 20th, 2024, in my opinion, is not accurate. But did the city staff uh, provide any information about their support for the grant to city council members for discussion or review or debate?
The grant was not, the first time that I heard we received the grant, I had not read the grant. It had not been presented to the city council. Once I started reading the grant, and I sent out 17 different questions to the staffs, asking them the questions that we had talked about, the fish habitat and stuff. And the letter is technically correct. Technically, the city council did vote for this in 2019. The sad thing about it, of the three people who signed it, not one of them voted for it. Not one of them voted against it, but they were not voting on that. So the only one on this council right now that has voted for this is Mr. King.
So this letter is actually making reference to something that had been voted on by basically a previous governing body and not the current city council for the most part.
Yeah, and that's not untypical. I mean, there are a lot of things that previous city councils do, and if a new council gets put on place like this January, would you see 4 or 5 items get brought up that we want to change? You could. I'm not up for re-election this year, but we do have 4 people who will be new to the council next year, and do they, the voters who vote, and they, if they decide that they want this to become a river, they can make that vote.
Okay, and then lastly, in the request for action of June 26th, 2023, that request for action approving the designation of Silver Lake Park as an historical landmark, and 2, directing the city attorney to prepare an ordinance for first reading, all of that was passed, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is really, really thank you and ask you, is there anything else that you basically, I mean, I feel really grateful for your time in helping clear these matters up. And it's a much more complicated issue than has been presented by local media. And this is of great importance to all of us who enjoy Silver Lake Park as a place where we have intergenerational memories at the swimming pools, at the walkways, at the bridges, the islands in Silver Lake Park, the band shelters. That used to be the center of band concerts at the 4th of July. They used to have fireworks there. That park is really special to a lot of people around here. Do you want to speak to the emotional significance of that park just a little bit?
Well, I'm not an emotional type of person, but I did want to get the facts out there, and definitions are definitely important for people. It's defining this as a modification to the dam. That's a stretch, but it's modifying a dam. You'll end up with a dam. You'll have the same elevation height. You'll have a smaller lake. And so those are important for people to understand those items like that. And there's some rumors, there's some other ideas out there. I would hate to have those 3 historic bridges out there have no water underneath them. And we do need to dredge. There is money from the previous sales tax extension, which is out of flood control, which we have $5 million to dredge that lake. And we're at that point that it needs to be done. And I brought that up a couple different times, that I want to make sure we get that dredged, because we need our flood control.
Have you seen the artist renditions of what they intend to do? And do you think the artist renditions are at all accurate in their portrayal of land usage along that area?
I don't remember seeing any of that, but they're all rendering some guesses of what they could do, and that's where you get the devil in the details. That they can show you one thing, but it doesn't tie us to it.
Yeah, because this park area is a green space as it exists. It's really it's something that people bring their friends and families to when they're visiting Rochester. It's in the heart of Minnesota House District 25B. It's really important. People exercise there and recreate all the time. So if the park is reduced by, say, half, that's really going to impact the well-being of the people who live around here.
Well,
Have that.
the lake will be reduced. I believe it's about 15% size wise and 750 feet of shoreline. The park itself won't be reduced. And I run it quite a bit. I'm down there quite a bit. It gets a lot of use from different cultures and different people. And the park is separate from the dam, and they made that very clear to us that those three projects that I described were not part of the master plan for the park. We're moving ahead with the master plan for the park. We're upgrading that park with our park referendum dollars. And so, we are working to make Silver Lake a better place, more friendly for everybody to use.
And just two more questions. Is the swimming pool in danger of going away at the Silver Lake swimming pool? Is that on the chopping block? And then will we ever see fireworks come back to Silver Lake?
Well, the first question is that we spent up to $100,000 to keep Silver Lake Pool open this year, and then we also voted to keep the pool open and rebuild it at a tune of about $5 million. 1.8 of that coming from the old 2012 sales tax dollars, and the rest of it, the next 8 years, will pay for that. That pool is 65 years old. Nothing's been upgraded for 20 years. They've been trying to close it, but the city council did vote to keep it there. My understanding on fireworks is that it probably won't come back to Silver Lake because of traffic. They believe that Soldiers Field has a better traffic control. That's not an issue the city council has really looked at, but we could revisit that issue.
I thank you for your time, and I really appreciate. I know you mentioned that you have a meeting at in about 5 minutes, and I really appreciate this time that you've given to help clear up these issues. I know a lot's been cleared up for me, so thank you for your.
And people can reach out to me. My phone number is 507-254-9484, and you can always get a hold of me at palmerward5@gmail.com.
And I'll post your contact info in the comments below this video. And I appreciate this dialogue because we need this kind of transparency so that people can just get the facts. Thank you so much, sir, for your time today.
Thank you. And enjoy the weekend, guys.
Thank you.